For most people, getting drunk or high is mostly seen as something that's unique to humans. Of course, this is not the case because there are plenty of animals that like to get drunk, and some also enjoy being high. Of course, they don't deal and buy drugs like us humans, but they do sometimes steal drugs and alcohol from humans, and they also find drugs and alcohol occurring naturally in the wild. In this video, I will be going through just a few species that like to live life on the edge, as I will be going through 3 species that like to get drunk and high. And for our first animal, we can head to either North America or Eurasia, as we have the moose. Now, the moose is the only species in its genus, and it is the largest and heaviest extant species in the deer family. The largest subspecies of moose can be found in Alaska, and these moose can stand at 2.1 meters at the shoulder and weigh almost a ton. This colossal size does offer them some protection, but they do still fall prey to some top predators such as bears and wolves. Despite their size, moose can be quite graceful creatures, and this is especially the case when they're in the water. They are surprisingly strong swimmers, and this ability comes in handy when they want to feed on aquatic vegetation. The moose is a browsing herbivore and is capable of consuming many types of plants and fruits. Because of their size, they need to eat an extortionate amount of food per day, and in the winter this can be as much as 20 kilograms. Their impressive appetite is the reason why the moose is on this list, because they have proven to be very fond of fermented fruits. In Alaska, they're known to feed on fermented crab apples, and in Sweden they're known to feed on fermented regular apples. These fermented apples are slightly alcoholic, and because the moose eat so many, it's easy for them to become intoxicated. There are quite a few famous stories of drunken moose getting into trouble, as one drunken Swedish moose famously got stuck in a tree. Although it is relatively common to see a drunken moose, if you see a moose acting strangely, it doesn't necessarily mean it's drunk. Moose have quite a strange behaviour as it is, and in some cases they can be very aggressive. In other situations, seeing a stumbling moose can be quite a depressing sight, because it could mean that they suffer from brainworms. Brainworms are taking out large numbers of moose each year, and it really does sound like a horrific way to go. The eggs hatch inside the moose's brain, and then the parasitic roundworms start tunnelling. Before these moose eventually succumb to the brainworms, they lose their minds, and often display a lack of coordination, movement and vision, before eventually succumbing to the parasite. One of the states worst affected by these brainworms is Minnesota, and over the past few decades, approximately 25 to 45% of Minnesota's moose have either become ill or died due to brainworms. So far, there's not a lot we can do to stop these parasites, and if you happen to see a moose stumbling, hopefully it's just drunk and not infected with brainworms. But for our next species, we will be heading over to Eurasia, as we have the Eurasian brown bear. The Eurasian brown bear is a subspecies of brown bear, but of course it is not the largest subspecies. That title goes to the Kodiak bear, but these two bears are very similar genetically. These bears are mostly only found on the eastern parts of Europe today, but they once had a much larger range. Because of its diet, it's been in constant conflict with humans, and in many countries across Europe they have been overhunted. It's long been extinct in Ireland, Britain, Denmark and the Netherlands, but it still has a stronghold in Northern Europe and Russia. Some experts believe that the bears in Eurasia are slightly less aggressive than the bears in North America. That's because around 2 people are killed by brown bears in North America each year, whereas in Scandinavia there has only been 3 fatal bear attacks in the last century. This might not tell the whole story, because there are plenty of factors such as population density that affect bear attacks. In other parts of Europe, bear attacks are also more common, because famously in Romania in 2019, 3 men were killed by brown bears in just over a month. The Eurasian brown bear's love of livestock is one of the reasons why it's been overhunted over the past few hundred years, but it has started to adapt. At one point, this bear was thought to be largely carnivorous, with around 80% of its diet consisting of animal matter. However, in the Middle Ages, this went down to around 40%, and today meat is only thought to make up around 10 to 15% of their diets. This change in diet is almost certainly down to humans, and the Eurasian brown bear has had to become more resourceful over the years. This need for new food sources has led to some drug use, because some brown bears have been eating mad honey. Now, mad honey is mostly found in Nepal and Turkey, and is created when some bees feed on rhododendron nectar. This nectar contains a neurotoxin, and in small quantities it brings on light headaches, and sometimes hallucinations. In the 1700s it was shipped around the world, and it was infused with beverages to give drinkers a greater high than alcohol could deliver. Unfortunately, like all drugs, there are some downsides too, as this mad honey can lead to low blood pressure, irregularities in heartbeat, and also seizures. Earlier on, in August of this year, some footage emerged of a bear looking worse for wear. This bear was clearly a young bear, and seemed to be completely out of its mind. It turned out this bear had been gorging itself on mad honey, and to be honest it looks like it's had a little too much. This bear was eventually picked up in a truck and rescued, and when it had been given a once-over by a vet, and also once it had come down, this bear was eventually released back into the wild. This just goes to show that animals can be drug users too, and I hope this bear thinks twice before eating this much mad honey again. But for our final species we will be heading over to Australia, and more specifically Tasmania, as we have the wallabies. Now there are around 30 species of wallaby alive today, and these wallabies are all adapted to different habitats and ecosystems. As I've covered many times on the channel before, there are introduced populations in New Zealand, Hawaii and the United Kingdom, and their survival in these ecosystems just goes to prove how adaptable they can be. In Tasmania there are two main species of wallaby, these being the Bennett's wallaby and the Tasmanian paddymelon. In Australia, some of the main predators of wallabies are dingoes, and also invasive creatures such as feral dogs, cats and red foxes. Most of these predators aren't found in Tasmania, and even the natural predators that are found there are found in smaller numbers. This means that life is relatively simple for wallabies in Tasmania, and for some individuals this life is made even easier by opium. Along with Turkey and India, Australia is one of the largest producers of poppies for medicinal purposes. And if you're unaware, opium from poppies is used to create morphine, codeine, and on the streets, heroin. Over the past few decades, wallabies in Tasmania have been taking advantage of this opium, and have been eating it directly from the source. They eat the poppy heads containing the opium, and as a result they get high as a kite. They have been seen hopping around in circles, and in some cases they completely pass out where they stand. This has proven to be very annoying for the local farmers, because not only do they trample and eat their crops, but they also return again and again because opium is highly addictive. This is of course also bad for the health of the wallabies, because this is essentially turning them into drug addicts. Luckily more measures have been put in place over recent years, and drug-dependent wallabies are a lot rarer nowadays. And I'm sure a lot of poppy farmers across Tasmania are happy that the wallabies have kicked their habit. I think that these stories just go to show that drug use isn't something that's unique to humans, and quite a few different species will happily get drunk and high. There are plenty of stories that I haven't included in this video, so if you want to see a part 2 let me know down in the comments below, as really I've just scratched the surface. For example, some birds are also known to steal opium from poppies, and some primates notoriously enjoy alcohol. I'm sure if some animals were clever enough they would produce their own alcohol and drugs, but luckily for now they are unable to do so. If you know of any other creatures that could have made it on this list, then let me know down in the comments below. But thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like these. But until next time, goodbye.